Okay, will you spell your first and last name for us, please?
My first name is Michelle, Michelle, Harrell, H-A-R-R-E-L-L. In fact, I'm going to go as Gabriele. I'm sorry.
Oh,
That's my maiden name.
so, okay. No
G,
Harold at all.
no.
Okay, Michelle,
Gabriele, and that's my maiden name.
1L.
Yep.
Okay.
Could you?
Michelle, I don't know anything about your story. I mean, good and bad, right? I don't
Right.
know anything. And if you have been a speaker for a H.E.R event, it means that you have a pretty great story, which probably means you have some pretty incredible downs and maybe some incredible ups.
Right.
So I'd love to hear about your first experience, what brought you here,
Okay.
and if you remember that day when you picked up the phone or you stopped by or whatever it is you did to seek help.
Right. I came to the H.E.R shelter about 2 years ago. I was in a marriage, and it was domestic violence, and it was really, really bad. And I had gotten to the point where I just couldn't take another beating anymore. And I had 2 children living with me. I was divorced at the time, so thank God when the beatings began, they weren't there. They were with their father on the weekend. This went on for about 6 months, and we had just bought a new house. Thank God my name was not on the house when we moved. And I just couldn't take it anymore. I had gotten to a point where I was wearing sweaters in the heat, and people started noticing changes in me. I was losing weight really bad. In fact, I couldn't even eat in the house. I remember taking like yogurt and going outside and eating because my stomach was in knots all the time. He had gotten out of the military, and he was honorable discharge. And when he did that, that's when it all started. And it started with one weekend I was in the closet looking for clothes, and he came looking for me, and I happened to have my back turned, and he had a belt on. And he asked me something, and I was busy looking for something in that closet. And he took his belt off. I didn't hear it. And the next thing I know, the metal part of the belt got slammed on the back of my back, and it knocked the wind out of me almost. I was standing up, and I remember I turned around, and he said, "Don't you ever not answer me again, ever. Do you understand?" And he turned around and walked out. Well, that put a shock in me, and of course everybody goes into denial. Well, what did I do, to deserve this? What's going on? And it progressively, the mental abuse was just as bad. In fact, I would have rather have taken a beating than some of the mental abuse that went on with me. Because you can always have a bruise heal. You can always have scars heal. You can't ever forget some of the stuff that was said to you or done. And it still bothers me. It's been 2 years. And I have PTSD. I was diagnosed with that because of this, severe. And when I came in, I was a special case. And what happened was, I had gone to my priest at the church telling him, look, I don't have anything, because I had stopped working. I was originally in broadcasting. And because when I had gotten married, he was, oh, you don't need a job, started isolating me, and I didn't know what was going on. And I was like, okay, this is great. I've been working for 20-some years. I've always wanted to be a stay-home mom. No, that wasn't the plan. And so I stopped working, and I had to rely on everything from him, money, things like that. When I went grocery shopping, he had to go with me, and he'd pay for it. And I couldn't look at anything really. If somebody walked by, if we were in a mall, I had to look down at the floor. If I didn't, then I knew what I was going to get when I got home. And what it boiled down to is I talked to my priest. I had a best friend at the time, thank God. And they made some phone calls because I had kids. And I was like, what am I going to do with the kids? They don't know what's going on. I'm covering up the bruise. Anything from bruises was from the neck down. So I was covering with sweaters, I was covering with everything. And finally, somebody mentioned the H.E.R shelter. And my best friend called first and said, look, my best friend is in this situation. I don't know if she can call, because he would take my phone when he was home, because he had, gotten out of the service, and hold my car keys, and my phone. He'd put my phone and my car keys in his pocket, and it was with him all the time. If I wanted to go somewhere, I'd have to ask permission, and then I would get, if my phone rang, he would see who was on there, and then he would hand me the phone if the phone was with. It was very rare that my phone and my keys were not with me, or with him, excuse me. And so what it boiled down to is I'd called the H.E.R shelter after my best friend did, explained to them. They're like, okay, we have room. And they can't come to you. You have to go to them. You have to, there's a certain way to get to the H.E.R shelter. So we had it planned, and he had taken up a side job for, trying to find a full-time job after he'd gotten out of the service. And he was supposed to go to work that day. And they told me you can only bring 2 bags, and I'm sitting there thinking, okay, my son's the most important. So, I got a garbage bag and started putting underwear in it for me, just little necessities and his, his stuff. And was getting ready to go down and go through the garage. And I had opened the garage door, and I had 2 garbage bags full of stuff. He pulls up in the driveway, takes me off guard, and we had just, been moved in for like, 6 months. So there was a lot of stuff in the garage. So I just acted like it was garbage and just put it on the side and walked down and acted like nothing. You become a real good actress when you're living with something like that and hiding it.
So can I just, gosh, I'm sorry. That is.
Oh, don't be sorry for me, sweetheart. I'm out of this now.
But I want to go back to 2 years. So you are extremely put together.
Thank you.
So polished.
Thank you.
And so I think that is on the outside. Is you looked like everything was just fine. And I think that is what I feel like people need to hear.
Right.
Is that everything can be not what it seems.
Right.
And did you feel that? Did you feel like, how did this happen?
Yeah, a lot of times at night, I didn't sleep. He didn't allow me to sleep in the bed. I had to sleep on the couch downstairs, and my fear was the kids were upstairs and the bedroom's upstairs, so I never slept. I always wanted to, hear. Yeah, I knew something was wrong. When you can't even eat in your own house, when you can't sleep in your own house, when you're walking on eggshells all the time, yeah. But, my friends, I started shutting them out. And I didn't want to drag them into it, except for one. My best friend stood by me the whole time. So I, and because of what I was doing in broadcasting, I sure as heck did not want anybody knowing, because one finds out, they all find out, and then it's everywhere. And I'm a very private person where it comes to that. But when it came down to the day I left, because we were talking about that, I had to call the H.E.R shelter when I had gotten basically busted by him, and said, look, I can't, he's home today, what am I going to do, And they're like, well, you need to get, I said, he won't, he's got my car keys, And I had my cell phone, and he left me when he would go somewhere. Sometimes it would be so he could call me and check on me. And so they're like, well, get out of there as fast as you can. So time was ticking. And he had come down like 2 nights before and wanted to know, it was like 10 till midnight or a quarter to midnight, wanted to know if I wanted to go for a ride. And he never let me in his car, ever. And he always kept it locked. It was very peculiar. And he says, yeah, why don't we go for a ride? And I looked at the time and I said, it's almost midnight. He goes, well, I'm hungry. I was like, well, we have food in the kitchen. He said, no, I said, well, nothing's going to be open, And I knew I was going to get a beating. I just knew it was coming, but I didn't care. Something kept telling me then, Michelle, if you get in that car, you're not coming back. And so I talked him out of it, you know, and I didn't get a beating. That was a surprise. So the next day, you know, it came, and that's when he was supposed to go to, and then I got busted. The next following day, he stayed home. And I was like, I can't be here anymore. I can't do this. I've got to find a way to get out. There's got to be a way to get out of here. And he's got my keys, he's got my phone. So I went back into that closet I was telling you about, and I started looking for more things, just, you know, kind of trying to figure out. He was down at the end, on the same floor at the end with the door shut, in what you call the man cave, and he played video games like 15, 17 hours at a time. It was insane. It was like he had problems, serious problems. And did I know before? No, I didn't know before I married him. This never showed. This did not show until we moved into the new house, okay? So I'm sitting there, and I'm like trying to go through anything valuable I could put in the trunk of my car, anything. You know, you think about crazy things. And I remember sitting there, or standing there, and then I got down and I was going through some like little things like jewelry my mom had given me and stuff. And I was just trying to take things, and I remember I just started losing it. And I knew he was down at the end of the hall, and I knew that door was shut. And I kept thinking in my head, Michelle, if you just had the keys, if you just had that, you know, you could go now. And even though the car, the way it was parked underneath, because it was room above the garage, the car was parked right there. So if I was to get, he could look out that window and see it, you know. So I was crying, and I was just like, dear God, I'm going to ask you something. Either take me right now. Don't let me continue like this and live like this, or help me, please. And I heard him come out. I heard the door open from down the hall, and he went in the bathroom. And then I heard him leave the bathroom, and then I heard him go back in the other room and shut the door. I went down the hallway to where that bathroom was, and I was going to go actually down the steps because it passed it, and he left the light on. And I turned and looked, and there was my keys and my phone sitting right there on the edge next to the toilet. It was on the sink, and that was a miracle because he must have, when he went to the bathroom, it was in his pocket. He didn't want it to fall out, put it there. I grabbed him, and I ran. I got down those steps. My kids, it was Easter break, so they were with their father. Their father knew something was going on because he kept asking me on the phone, are you okay? Is something wrong? And I said, no, but it will be. He didn't know what was going to happen, but I knew the kids were safe. So I grabbed the keys and the phone, and I ran down, and I opened the front door real quietly, shut it, and then I ran around the house, got in my car, locked my car doors, I pulled backwards, and I never looked back. I lost it all. I lost the furniture, I lost my clothes, I lost everything. But I gained my dignity back, and I gained my life back. And he, come to find out, he had been wanting to join ISIS. Yeah, out of the military, he had been wanting to join ISIS. So when I got here, that was a whole nother story, a whole blur. I had to tell my counselor who was here what was going on. And it was like 2 weeks in that I was here, FBI came up here and they sat us down, they talked to us. I had saved my laptop because it had all my work on it and stuff that was in the trunk, and talked to me, and then they watched him. Well, I can talk about this now because he went back overseas to where he was originally from, and they made sure that his dual citizenship was revoked and his passport was revoked. So I'm safe. I'm not like a lot of these women around here. I mean, I can talk.
Because he's not coming back.
No, ever.
Right.
And he had a child that was a beautiful child. I absolutely loved and took her as my own. She would come on weekends. And that weekend, she was supposed to come that I had left. And he had been in the process of going to court. So I called the lawyer of the mother, because I knew who the lawyer was, and said, whatever you do, this is what's happening to me. Please, please don't let that child back in that house. And he didn't.
And he just a point of clarity, and not even for the video, but did he harm your children?
No.
Okay.
No. I'd have killed him.
Yeah.
I would have. And I tell everybody when I start talking, I do a lot of talks. I do it for the H.E.R shelter. I do it for communities, churches, things like that. I always start it off with, you know, I hope not one of you in here ever has to look at your child and say, if I don't make it out of here alive, please tell your brother that I fought. I fought for my life. You know, they say, I don't care how many times you talk about this, when you stop crying is when you're healed. I don't think that that's true, because I still, to this day, 2 years later, because of PTSD, when I hear heavy footsteps coming up the steps at my apartment, even my son stops. He turns the TV down and listens. I can be somewhere. It took me when I got out of here, and I want to really give all of my love and my heart and thanks to the H.E.R shelter, because if it wasn't for them, I would be a statistic sitting in front of you. I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't. There was no way. He was going to kill me. And I look back at it now, and it was like so many times, you know, I just, and a lot of people are like, why did you stay? You know, well, this snuck up on me. This was like, you know, get a new house, you're married, you know, and you don't expect it, and then they snap on you. In my head, after he hit me the first time, I was thinking of the kids and going, okay, how can we make a plan to get out? Where can I go? What can I do? I didn't want to go to my family because I didn't want to drag him over there. He could kill him or whatever, you know. I didn't want to drag my kids into it. I wanted them hid. And my ex-husband did. I made the phone call when I got to the H.E.R shelter. I told him what was going on. He understood. He took the key. He goes, whatever you do, Michelle, just stay safe. Whatever you do, I've got the kids. Don't worry about them. They're fine. He had to relocate them in different schools, but it was okay. You know, I knew they were fine. I talked to them every day. I could go out and see them on weekends. So I knew I had to work on me. That was the most important to get, because I didn't know who me was anymore.
So I want to get back to the point. So I'm glad your kids are fine.
Yeah.
And how long, again, were you in that hell?
Oh my God. It was about 6 months of hell, 6 to 8 months. I was lucky. I'll say that, because a lot of these women are
you were
years.
right there in that.
Yeah.
Okay, so the Michelle today
Yes.
is a different Michelle from 2.5 years
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah.
What work have you done? And I love what you said about the H.E.R shelter, because
Yes.
they've built you up. It
Yes,
sounds
they
like.
have. Yes, they have.
Can you talk about who you are now
Sure.
versus that woman who we would have known 2 years ago?
It's funny. I was talking to somebody the other day, and we were talking about fear, you know, being scared. And I don't know what it was, but I looked at them and I said, you know what? As much as I went through and as much as I experienced and I saw, nothing scares me anymore. Nothing. And I'm different in a way of, when I got out of the shelter, I took a year off from everybody and everything except for work. And the H.E.R shelter helped me get back on my feet by helping me find work. It wasn't in the area of broadcasting, but it was in another area, and I'm glad that they did that, because I wouldn't have my apartment. You know, that's what started it all. I am a different person because I know when red flags show, with people. I go and talk to these women, and I hear, it's made me more understanding, more compassionate. It's opened my eyes more to domestic violence. Once you're in it and you've been through it, then you can really understand. I mean, a lot of people who haven't, I'll sit there, some of these talks and some of the women, people get emotional, they cry. I get emotional and cry too, but I guess because it happened to me and I'm telling the story, I always look out in the audience and I see people, getting emotional. It's like, don't you dare cry for me. They better be tears of joy because I'm not there anymore. Don't be sorry for me. I had to learn. It was a hard lesson, but boy, did I learn.
What would you like to say to somebody who could be watching this? It could be on the YouTube channel. It could be on the Facebook page. It could be on stage on Tuesday. And you can't look at somebody and say, oh, I know that you're suffering. You can't. It's not one of those things.
No.
People are great at hiding their feelings and their bruises. What do you want to say to somebody? What do they need to know about the strength that they have inside them, about the support that is out there should they need it? What do you want them to know?
I guess I would say to them, go with your gut first. If you're in a situation like that and you know it's wrong and you're shutting everybody and everything out and you're walking on eggshells, you need to get out. If you're fearing for your life, get out. Please get out. There are people out there that can help you. You don't have to suffer. You don't. You're not alone. There are millions and millions of women out there who are going, or men, that are going through the same thing. And you just have to have the courage. I know it's a hard road. And it's hard to be on your own and not know anybody and start all over again. Because you lose everything along with your dignity at the time. But there are people out there that care and that can get you to a place, to a new person. If you're standing in front of a mirror and you don't know who you are anymore, they help you find yourself. And I promise you, one day you're going to wake up and you're going to know who you are again. You're going to love that person. And I'm living proof of it.
You're great. And I'm so glad that you're here.
Thank you.
Do you want to add anything? Anything I've missed?
I don't know. Can you take more pictures, Olivia?
Did you want some from the back? I just didn't want to go
Like from the back of them to me, where you can see him on the camera, or sideways?
40.
Okay.
Do you,
Olivia, what is something I can
is there
talk
anything
about?
else you want her to, I mean, that was incredible.
I was going to say, yeah, you pretty much nailed it.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
So where
I
do you want
think
more pictures from?
Kids, get them out, be safe, There's, because they also suffer too. Now, thank God, my kids didn't see it. My oldest knew something wasn't right.
So he didn't hear or see?
No, the beatings always happened when
they were gone.
And it was Easter vacation, thank God, when they both went off with their dad. So when I decided to flee, my oldest, I did confide in him, and I did tell him, look, this might not be here when you get back. I might not.
And you've talked with them since, and they don't.
Oh, yeah.
They don't care, right? I mean, do they not care that the stuff is gone?
Oh no,
I'm sure they don't.
No, they don't. I mean, I had the sheriff's department said, look, we can take you over there, and give you 30 minutes, but he's got to be there. 30 minutes to get your now furniture and all that. You can't do that in 30 minutes. And somebody here at the H.E.R shelter actually taught me. They were talking to me, and it was like, Michelle, you got to look at it like your stuff was in a fire and it burned up. And it's all gone. I know this is traumatic and what you're going through, but you've got to train yourself to do that. And it was strange, but I did. And then one other time, I was here for 3 months, 3 long months, but it was a good 3 long because it helped build me up. But what happened was, I had an offer again to go back, you know, for 30. And I looked and I said, you know what? There is a hope chest my grandparents gave me. In the cradle, my dad had made the boys, but I said I could go get and they looked at me and they're like, Michelle, number one, you don't have anywhere to place to put it. Number two, why do you want to mess with ashes and get your hands dirty if it's been burned in a fire? Do you want that stuff in your house now after everything you've been through? And I was like, no, I don't. So I still catch myself though. And my friends know, I have a strong circle of friends, very strong. They're always like, you know, they'll say, oh, what about that picture? So I lost photos, you know. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm sorry I lost that in the fire too. And they know. They know not to ask. They know what it means when I say that. But yeah, and I always thought if I could tell my story, because a lot of people do know me in the community, and that was one thing while I was hiding, you know, for a year. If I could tell my story just to one person and it would help them and it would save them, then I did my job. And that's why I keep telling my story. It's also therapeutic for me, it's healthy for me, but I want to help. And if this is the only way I can do it, then so be it.
Thank you for doing it.
Thank you.
I
Thank
you
you.
so much. I loved your story.